All right, Mississauga, we're back. Excited. It's a new year, new season, and I'm reaching out. I'm reaching out to find people, specialists who have a set skills. And today's guest, I've been following him on YouTube. And Renee, before I sort of allow you to sort of have a word in, I just want to tell the audience that YouTube gods, for whatever reason, they always know when the student is ready. So when I saw your mini shorts, and I think the first one that I saw, Renee, was the one where you talk about presence and the from our eyes to our waist. There's this command station almost, and if we don't
Mm,
know how to use our hands, either we are going to be like puppets or we're going to sort of be very active with the audience. And from there, I've been start following you, and I'm like, I have to have Renee
mm.
on my podcast. Just to let our listeners know, considered by many as the leading authority on leadership and influence, Renee is a best selling author, keynote speaker, leadership advisor, and transformational speaker coach. And for the last 27 years, Renee has been researching and applying behavioral neuroscience. We're going to get into all that stuff to solve some of the toughest challenges in leadership, sales, and change. And we need that now. So, Renee, welcome to Misaga Keeping It Real.
Thank you for having me. I think you were talking about the influence zone. That video has
That's right.
resonated a lot of people.
It did, and it was just a very impactful and so some many of us live unconsciously. We don't know what we are doing, and in many of your videos, you know, within 7 seconds, we make a huge impact, don't we, Renee?
Yeah, there's a, and I'll pull it up here in a second. There's a Da Vinci quote that says something along those lines that many of us hear without listening. Many of us uh, speak without thinking and move without awareness. It's a very common thing for us to do, and we have to. By the way, it's not that we're lesser because of that. It's part of our human nature. We cannot be consciously fully aware of everything at all times. We have selective attention. We have to choose what's important, and when that happens, sometimes we weren't taught or we didn't build any awareness around those things that actually communicate who we are, what our thinking is, what we're feeling. But the good news, we can be trained on it. You can train the unconscious, so what we call a system one habitual response, to be more in tune with a congruent message that we're trying to relate. If we want to look like a leader, we can train those unconscious responses over time. People, they say it's muscle memory. A military officer, a basketball player, a chess player, they train themselves so often, so their initial moves are much more calculated and much more advantageous and tactically better than somebody who is untrained. And so I don't ever get into judgment of the whether you're good or bad. You just, sometimes we're just trained, aware, unaware, trained, not trained. And thank God, because I wasn't born with these skills. And these are things that we have to be able to learn once we become aware of it.
It's a very good point. I've taken some course in the last 5, 6 years, and the main message in some of these courses I've taken, and you've also alluded to them as well too in your videos, is vulnerability. You talk about, if we can't be vulnerable, how do we expect the other person to be vulnerable? And in today's society, we're so guarded, Renee. It's like, oh no, you go first. And just before we came on, I was just watching a video of yours that you addressed as a TED talk to some high school students. And you're like, okay, so I'm going to share something very personal with you, and you point to somebody else in the audience. You say, okay, you go first, or something like that. And I was
Yeah.
like, can we jump and yeah, can we talk about the power of vulnerability? Um, leadership. We need it today.
Yeah.
And as an
Yeah.
educator myself, I know the impact that I have when I'm vulnerable with my students. And vulnerability doesn't only apply in the arena of education, but everywhere.
Yeah. Well, the example I was giving was that we live in a very you go first society. We want vulnerability, but you go first. We want leadership, but you test the waters out first. And The example was I'd started and I said, like I want to share a very difficult story that, quite frankly, is not easy to share. And you watch people sit on the edge of their seats, and God, this is not an easy one. But to feel more comfortable, would you mind telling a vulnerable story first? And everyone's like, wait, what? No, hold on. You can go. I'm happy to listen, but I will not go first. And so I think it embodies very quickly the reality of what leadership means. It is about going first when no one does. And we can conceptualize that. We can intellectualize that idea. We can talk about it all day long. But the reality is it's scary to put yourself vulnerable. But then you go, okay, there's a paradox to vulnerability. There's a really interesting paradox. There's the person being vulnerable, their experience, and there's the person experiencing the person sharing a vulnerable moment and their experience. So these are two dualities, right? As the person being vulnerable, typically we report feeling exposed and weak. And in business, being a man, and a lot of women in certain environments too, there's a vulnerability contextually that comes with that. And then, but what's fascinating to me, and this is what's always cool, is that most people, unless you're a bad person, experience the person being vulnerable as the opposite, as and not being exposed and weak, but being courageous and strong. And so here you have exposed and weak and courageous and strong living side by side in the same thing. The only thing different there's the two perspectives. And so what I tell leaders, I go back to the person that you really respected and their vulnerability. Say, yeah, it was fantastic. I said, so that feeling they created in you, why wouldn't you want to create that in them? And then you have to stop listening to that voice inside that says, oh, my perception of this moment is that I'll be exposed and weak. But you have to go from the perspective of the audience and live there and go, I owe this to them, because most people say, wow, that was such a gift. Thank you. Like, your vulnerability was a gift to me. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. So why not give people a gift of our vulnerability? And I think the fundamental reason behind that is the most human thing that exists is error, is mistake, it is imperfection. The least human trait is perfection. And so what do we call somebody who's perfect, quote unquote perfect? We call them a robot, something that's not even human. So we call you non-human. Yet, but when to err is to be human, we know this. So it's all of the stuff that says, okay, well, I see you as perfect on that stage, as the leader on the podcast. I have this sort of built up persona of who you are, and when you show your humanness, I can go, oh, thank God, they're not so much different than me, and so there's a gift of release there. There's other forms of what real leadership is.
Beautifully said. Just as you were sharing that, I'm going back to the days when I started to read a lot of books on leadership, and you may have heard of this author, Robin Sharma. I don't know if you have or not. The monk who sold his Ferrari. Before we get into this wonderful world of leadership and confidence, and even dab into the connection between spirituality and leadership, how did you get into this arena of leadership? Is this something that you woke up, or as a little kid you're like, you know what, I want to be a leader, I want to share facts, truths about leadership, and allow others to be themselves? How did this journey start for you, Renee?
I don't think anybody was born with that idea. I think we all born with the ability and the desire to be more influential. We probably don't call it influence as a kid. We
Mm,
want to impact the world around us in some way, shape, or form. We want to create some structure around us. We want to be able to, date the girl or the boy that we like. We want to be able to get the teacher to like us. Build a good network of friends. We want to be able to play the game that we want to play. Go see the movie that we want to see. Watch the show that we want to show. We're always trying to influence, and the more influence we have, the better we feel and report life. The less, the worse we report it. And so if you think about it, we go, okay, imagine taking influence away. You walk in a room, no one notices. You tell a joke, no one laughs. You sell a product, no one buys. You share an idea, no one cares. You cast a vision, no one follows. That typically reports back the feelings of invisible, inferior, depressed. I say it's the word is insignificant. And so when you play that word out and you say, okay, well, I'm in a meeting and I feel insignificant. Well, I'd probably ask myself, why am I in this meeting? If I'm in a relationship feeling insignificant, I'd ask myself, why am I in this relationship? If I'm at work feeling insignificant, why do I work here? So if you think about it, if you take away significance and impact, the first question that arises is, well, then what's my purpose? And so then imagine feeling insignificant in life. You'd say, well, what's my purpose on being on this earth? So play it back. You have influence now. You walk in a room, people notice. You tell a joke, people laugh. You sell a product, people buy. You cast a vision, everyone lines up and follows. Those are pretty good feelings. Empowered, strong, and leader, all those things. But I would say the simplest one is significant. All right, play that out. I'm in a meeting and I feel significant. I know why I'm in this meeting. I'm in a relationship, I feel significant. I know why I'm in this relationship. I'm at work feeling that way. I know why I work here. Well, what if we felt significant every day of life? We know why we're here. And the path to significance to me is influence. So that now I can do something and the world shifts in some way, shape, or form. And if it's just really small. And I think we think about the world too broadly. I always say it's the world around me. I had a really dear friend of mine. I was going through something difficult, and they said, I know this feels like your world, but it's not. I know this feels like the world right now. It's not. It's just the world you're in currently. And I was like, that is so strong. And if you think about the world around me right now, the world around me is you, period. There's nothing else in here. And if I can impact the world around me, that means I have 100% of my energy for you today. Now, because of you and your platform, this will hopefully reach a lot more people. And so then now, if I focus on the world around me, which is just you, that level of intentionality, that level of focus will then hopefully transmit via other channels and digital channels, video, audio, to a broader world. But if I was focused on the broader world right now, that's not even around me, that I can't have impact on, I lose the connection with you, which I believe brings down the authenticity of the presentation, of even the information, brings down the chemistry between you and I in our conversation. It it doesn't make you feel any better if I'm thinking about, well, so like, so a lot of my clients, what I'm really, because I'm really going to talk about them through you, because I really don't care about you, but you see what I'm saying? But if we focus on that world around us, and sometimes it's just one person, and you do for a long period of time, I think that's where you start having the bigger impact.
Mm, impact. Talking about the word impact, in one of your earlier videos, you had said that there was a turning point for you as well too, where your mom had said, "What is something that's common among all the people here?"
Mm,
Can you touch on that?
yeah. You got all the old videos. This is good. The original ones. So yeah, I was 17, and my mom, she said, look around this room and tell me what everyone has in common. And of course I went to skin color and race and dress, height, weight, and gender, all the basics. And I couldn't figure it out. And she said, they all have a brain. And if you can understand how the brain works, life becomes easier, relationships become easier, business becomes easier, communication becomes easier. And that sort of sparked this look and saying, okay, what is that thing? And okay, so if our outer being looks different, if our auditory sounds different, but yet our inner workings of the mind is relatively basically the same, well, then if I understand that circuitry, the process by which we process information and receive it and as send it and then received it again by others, if I can understand that, man, that would just explain so many things, like why we resist a new idea, why we don't like certain people, why ideas are accepted by someone but rejected by someone, or if we change the sequence, why does it work this way and not that way? And so um, those are all the things that went through my mind at that point. I'd created a massive passion for it. Now it's been 31 years almost.
And how's the journey been like for you? Because you look down the road, or when hindsight is 2020, you see different leaders show up. I remember there
Mhm.
was once upon a time where you have to take action. You gotta, tell your customers, your clients, okay, you have to do this, and then suddenly there's this, the Robin Sharma books. You lead by service. So in your years of experience, what has changed that you're like, wow, things have evolved for the better? Insights in that, Renee?
Honestly, I think the rhetoric has changed, but the fundamentals never have.
Mm,
I think the methods have changed, but you still have to take action. That doesn't
yeah.
change. We've just heard the message so often that it becomes cliche and we have a callus built to it. But I promise you, Robin Sharma takes action every day. He had to take action to write his book. He had to take action to build his business, to manage his social feed. So there a lot of times, but those of us who are ready to take action, we also then forget that there's a spiritual side to things. There's a meaningful side. There's a purposeful side to things. So it's not just about taking action, but maybe it's taking meaningful action. And so maybe that message evolves, but a lot of times people get into this word manifest and they forget that manifesting is on you first. I don't sit back and hope. Like my mantras aren't I am rich. It should be I engage in the activities on a daily basis consistently that bring wealth to me, that add value to a customer base. Take away the daily actions, you will not find wealth. You won't find any meaningful wealth because that dopamine, that wealth unearned through effort is fake. That's a trust fund. If you get wealth through unearned means, you don't you just by definition you have no sense of the value of that. A child that is given everything is ruined because they don't understand stress and struggle and suffering and sacrifice, because it's through those things where value is built. And so, but yet us as parents, me included, I did this for too many years where I said, you know what, I had a rough life. I will cold day in hell before I let my kids go through what I went through. And I'm like, oh shoot, maybe that was the training. Maybe that's what I needed to. And so we backed away from that whole idea. And I told my kids, I said, look, I made a mistake. I think I made life a little too easy. And I said, but here's the thing, life will teach you these lessons, or I will. And I promise you, I will be a lot nicer than life. Because if you don't understand these things, the police are happy to teach you lessons. The IRS is happy to teach you lessons. Your teachers, your bosses are happy to teach you lessons. A girl or a boy that you fell in love with, they're happy to teach you lessons for doing the wrong thing. Like life will teach you. I go, let me start this. It's not going to be fun and you won't like it, but let's start with why. And I think all of those come together. So I think it's not a whether it's either or. I would say, how do we integrate both of those wisdoms?
Mm, wisdom. I like that word. Going back, I'm sort of gonna put you on the spot here. When you go back to your first leadership workshop,
Mm.
get together, to where you are today, what's been the biggest change for you?
Um, and my first leadership workshop would have been a sales training. And I spent 3 weeks preparing for this 4 hour session, and 4 people showed up. And I was ecstatic that anybody showed up. And I remember going through and the amount of preparation and the thoughts of how do you merge brain research with sales process. And I didn't know at the time just how unique that was. And saying, okay, there's brain science around how we process and accept information and the resistance in terms of, to new ideas through a sales process where we're dealing with resistance on a daily basis. And people were just looking around these 4, they're like, okay, can we do this again? But I want to bring a few more people. And I was like, we're like, yeah, let's do it again. And so I don't know, there's a lot of things that have shifted, but I still train on the exact same ideas, and I might just be a little bit more confident with them. Probably have a lot more application with them. The audience sizes are bigger, but the fundamental understanding of gratitude that they have a choice to be there or not has never shifted, because people, if somebody came up to me and they went over probably 1,000 people, they said, thank you so much for coming today. I go, thank me. I go, thank you. Do you know how silly I look on that stage without you guys out there? I go, trust me, most of my career has been like that. So honestly, this is teamwork, man. Thank you. You showed up. I got to do my part. And thank you for being here. And that's not a phrase or a line. That is legitimately how I feel, because it, too many speakers, too many leaders think that they own their credibility.
Mm.
They're what we would call their ethos. You don't own your ethos. Your audience does. Because if the audience doesn't like you, they'll just give you a bad rating. If you're not liked immediately on social media, they have a thumb that can just move and swipe you to the next possible greener grass, better idea, better dopamine. Who knows? And if you don't understand and really embrace the fact that we are servants and truly there to serve, not from I'm a servant leader. There's no self-righteousness in that. There is a humility to that, and saying, thank God that they have given me this platform. Now, I might have created a platform, but through value that they have deemed valuable. I can't choose the value. I just have to listen and offer the value that they have chosen. Now, if I'm really good, I can offer value they didn't realize they need. Now, that's really fun. But still, at the end of the day, they still determine the value. I'm not talking about self value. I'm talking about the external marketplace value.
Mm. Leadership. You said you started as, in the sales. Has this now gone, has it surpassed that and moved into everyday life leadership, family, being a coach, a parent? Leadership is in everything, isn't it not, Renee?
I'd say that, I had a conversation with Ken Blanchard in 2006. And I said, what's the difference between leadership and management? And he goes, one of the most common questions I get. And he said, let's define leadership. I think leadership is a leader is anybody who influences someone else. I was like, I agree. And so if kids, and here's the other thing, the big misnomer is that you need a title to lead. I know this firsthand with over 250,000 people that we've trained, that some of the strongest leaders have no title. Now, this leader may be leading people down the wrong path culturally. They may be rallying people to rebel, still leading. A leader may be a gang member that is leading a group of people to do things that are unheard of, but they're still leading. And it's that influence we have is such a powerful tool because it can be used to do good, it can be used to do evil. And so when we think about that perspective, there's leadership in life. I've got to lead my kids. I've got to lead my family. I've got to lead my the people around my neighborhood if need be. I've got to be able to step up and man, I just can't imagine any position that and here's the thing. We also need followership because it's
Mm.
like a good leader knows when to follow too. That's a really big thing. Followership behavior, I think, is really good. And so I don't want to get stuck on that leadership's the answer to everything
Yeah.
because sometimes the second follower is the one that makes the movement. And somebody said, what do you mean? Well, there's this video online. It's a viral video. It's really cool. It's these people on this grassy knoll. They're at a concert and there's just kind of this hill down and all the people are just kind of sitting there. They kind of look like, I don't know, it almost looks like a Woodstock, but it's not Woodstock, right? You can imagine what they look like. And down towards the bottom of the hill is this guy that's dancing. I don't know if you call it dancing, but he's moving in a really weird, um, not rhythmic, definitely doesn't care that anybody's watching. And he looks like a fool. And if I were there, I'd be like, what is that guy doing? I don't know if I could help the judgment. And he's doing this for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And there's a social psychologist watching this. And he goes, what's interesting? He goes, this person is dancing and there's no one is moving. No one's paying attention, anything. And then somebody gets up and joins him. And all of a sudden, these two people are there. But no one's moving at all. No one's moving, no one's dancing. And after about another minute or so, a third person gets up and all of a sudden heads start looking, and then a fourth, then a fifth, then 10, then 20, and then the entire hillside is moving in that same funky, weird, uncoordinated pattern. And it wasn't the leader, it was the second follower that really validated what was going on. And so there's so many roles in this process of movement and leadership and culture, you name it, that we don't want to lose sight of that followership behavior either.
Wow. That was, I love that example. Yeah.
I'll see if I can find the link and send it to you so you can add it into your
Yeah.
show notes.
No, no, absolutely. Wow. Yeah. I'm sort of taken back. Is it, anyone can be a leader. Anyone can be a leader. And usually society puts leadership on certain titles, CEOs, presidents, prime ministers, the big accolades. But leadership is, it's everywhere. It is definitely everywhere. With the years of studying and research that you've done in the area of leadership, confidence, is there a difference between gender leadership? I don't know if anybody's asked you that, like men leaders and women leaders.
You know, is there a difference between men and female leaders? Obviously, there's difference in masculine and feminine personality traits. That's where I think there's more value in that discussion for me
Mm,
because you get into men and women conversations, man versus woman. There's physical differences, obviously. There's strength differences. There's hormonal differences,
Yes.
massive hormonal differences. But then the one thing that both need are both masculine and feminine personality traits. And so I, even though I'm 6'3", 240 pounds, I'm a big guy. I lift weights. I have a lot of feminine personality traits and empathetic. I listen. I'm pretty agreeable. And now that doesn't mean that I don't have masculine too. Like I have plenty of masculine and I look masculine. But the thing that I've come to learn is that they both of those are needed. And women, when they can adopt some masculine personality traits in the workforce, they make more money. Period. Because a lot of what determines people's pay isn't gender; it's actually personality traits like agreeableness. Somebody who is highly agreeable is going to live longer, have better relationships, and is kind of happy in a lot of senses. But they just don't negotiate well. They'll just be like, okay, I'll take that. Somebody who's less agreeable might say, no, that's not okay, and they push for 5% more. And so men typically are less agreeable than women. Now, that doesn't mean that all, just on an aggregate scale. Now, I tend to be pretty agreeable. And so what I try to do is have somebody who's negotiating for me that is less agreeable. And magically, we make more money and we earn a better income. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I thank God I have feminine personality traits because I can sit and listen to a story and listen beyond and be empathetic and feel. And it creates a deeper connection with what's going on. And so I think men also need to learn to adapt more feminine personality traits because the Great Resignation, right at the end of COVID, where 76% of people wanted to leave, was because leaders, mostly men, were not listening and they weren't empathetic because people needed more connection and meaning at work. Those are feminine personality traits. And we were going to lose 76% of our workforce to someone else. That's expensive. That's not a soft skill then anymore. That is as ROI driven as possible as can be. And then, but women that want to make more money, they should take assertiveness training. Learn how to be less agreeable. Those are fixable things. I can't technically fix your gender, right? In a normal sense, but I can help you improve other personality traits. And so I think that from that perspective, I like to look at it from the perspective of anybody can learn these skills. And if I put gender on it, that's immediately putting on something that I can't technically control. Therefore, I'm not going to use it as a factor. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. Absolutely. Um, you talk about factor, and the world is going through so much change right now, Renee. You know, call it spirituality, the rise of consciousness leaders, spiritual leaders. Before we had come on, you said that in the next couple of days you will be having a talk around this area. Like I'm thinking it as I'm allowing the words to come out of my mouth. Spiritual leadership. What does that mean to me? I really have to think about that one. Um, is it me being content with what I know, and then coming from a place of compassion, and then relaying whatever needs to be delivered as a message to the audience, or in this case, to my students? Um, so that's my
Mm.
vulnerability, sort of saying, okay, Renee, you tell me first, but here I am sort of falling into this vulnerability and asking myself the question, what is spiritual leadership? Yeah, compassion and being empathetic, respecting all faiths. Um, it's a hard one for me.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's so I think so. Let's start with the definition of terms: spiritual, and then leadership. We kind of did leadership.
Yeah.
So spirituality, and I'm going to think out loud here too. I think spirituality is the realization that there's something bigger than us, something bigger than me. There's an intelligence out there in some way, shape, or form, and realistically, what you believe is typically geographically based, right? It's most often where you were born. If I was born in another country, I'd probably believe something different. If I was in an Arab country, I'd probably be Muslim. And there's all sorts of things. Now, of course, there's changes within it, but on a general sense. So then, for me, I go, okay, what is spirituality? And I have this book that I keep next to my desk all the time. It's actually ironic. It's called Oneness.
Mm.
And in the back, it has a quote that says, let's see if I have my glasses nearby. On the back, it says, from the Dalai Lama, every major religion of the world has similar ideas of love, the same goal of benefiting humanity through spiritual practice, and the same effect of making their followers into better people. And so it goes through and identifies like like some teaching let's just say it's the Bible. And the first one I think in here is the Golden Rule. And it explains the Golden Rule. And then it says, in Christianity, it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, for this is the law of the prophets. But in Judaism, it says, what is hurtful to yourself, do not do to your fellow man. This is the whole Torah, and the remainder is but commentary. Islam, do unto all men as you would wish to have done unto you, and reject for others what you would reject for yourselves. Buddhism, hurt not others with what which pains yourself. Confucianism, Su Kung asks, is there one principle upon which the whole life may proceed? The master replied, it is not is not reciprocity such a principle. What you do not yourself desire, do not put others through. Hinduism. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's the
Yeah.
same. And it goes through every principle. And I thought, okay, what are we fighting over? In my mind, right? If there's a central truth to some of these things, and this is a scientific approach, the anomalies, the confounding variables in this equation is the human and our brains, and honestly, men at that time that were writing this stuff and putting their own twists. And if you watch the old movies, everyone was killing each other over religion. So there was some very human drivers behind this. And some of the stuff maybe got lost in translation. And so I think spirituality for me would be, one, is understanding there's something bigger for myself. Two, trying to find the gifts that I was given in some way, shape, or form. And then three, taking the talk and moving that into action. And how am I living the verb of what you believe in, the verb of Jesus, the verb of Buddha, the verb of Muhammad, whatever that is in your understanding of it. The scary part is when people get overly literal in their translations. Most of these things were written in parable. Most of them were written in story, which leaves room for symbolism and interpretation. So that's where it gets interesting.
It does get interesting. Is this the spiritual component of leadership? Is this something you are bracing yourself now with as well, to like another level of, another platform to sort of, the bigger picture? Is this something that has been in your radar for the last couple of months, or is it something you've been thinking about? Or
I haven't stopped thinking about it since I was a kid, but
Mm.
it's something that I try to integrate into everything that I do. But in a different way, meaning I've come to learn that semantics sometimes are at the core of resistance. So I can tell you and stand on a soapbox and say, you need to follow the teachings of fill in the blank. And it's easy to do that. Let's just use Facebook. Let's talk about politics for a minute, because it's the same thing. Because the part of the brain that joins politics is the same part of the brain that chooses religion and spirituality.
Mm.
Same part of the brain. So we go, okay, I'm going to rant about my political party and how awesome they are and how horrible the other side is. All that's effectively done is united the people who already believe what you believe, meaning no change, and repelled those that don't believe what you believe, which are the people that I think you're trying to affect. So it takes no leadership or skill to do that. It takes nothing. People already believe what you believe, you rally them. Okay, cool. That's great. Now, rallying people, there's a value to that. But if you're trying to create change, I don't think that's the platform. So, okay, same would be true in religion and spirituality. So if I know that there's certain words that I can't use, or that if I use them, I will immediately shut your brain down. Why would I use them? They're just the words. Why not use other words that have the same exact essence meaning. And if we can agree on those values, then all of a sudden maybe there's more commonality instead of getting so hung up on the words. And so there's a great TED talk called as two neuroscientists, how to have better political conversations. And they took people from two political sides and they removed all the political language and they started talking about values. Fascinating. Democrats were defending Republican values. Republicans were defending Democrat values. You couldn't tell who was who. Because when you remove the veil of the political semantics, all of a sudden we're a lot more engaged. And what's crazy is I do this little exercise when we do our engage course where I tell people, how we it's an example of how we what really motivates us and how we connect our prefrontal lobe to our limbic system and what inspiration truly is. So take somebody who's a young child. Like, do you have a young child?
No, no.
Okay, so you have a niece or a nephew or somebody
I
that
do.
you care about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's their name?
Liam and Mila.
So who's younger?
Mila.
Let's go with Mila. Beautiful name. So let's pretend that between you and I'm going to offer you money to do certain things, right? And you're going to say yes or no to these things. And I'm going to, like, so for example, here's a $100 bill. There's a 2-inch puddle of water between us. Is that worth you going to get the $100 to get your shoes a little bit wet?
Sure.
Yeah, right. So that part. I'm having a conversation with your prefrontal lobe. It's kind of at the forehead there.
Oh, I
But
remember watching this video. Yes, 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 yes.
yeah, and so then the connection, though, how we make the decision is back to our limbic system, where your limbic system is asking this question: is this alignment with my values? And if the answer is yes, you'll do it. If the answer is no, you won't. And then sometimes you'll be like, yes, I will. Sometimes no, I won't. A very clear connection to values. But sometimes you're going to think, and there's that connection being made.
Mm,
And so I'll walk them through. Okay, so it's 10 feet deep. You got to get wet for $100. Is that worth it to you?
absolutely.
No. How about 1,000? 10,000.
How deep did you say it was, the water?
10 feet.
How much? 1,000? Is it? No, you said 1,000. What's after that?
10,000.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay, there you go. So now values like, hey, it's worth getting a little bit wet. So this cost benefit analysis.
That's right.
How about let's make the temperature of water 39 degrees?
Mm. Is that in
Pretty cool.
Celsius or in Fahrenheit? Or in
Fahrenheit, yeah.
degrees?
It's almost freezing.
Ooh. Mm. I know I do cold therapy immersions, but maybe a little bit more is needed. Yeah.
Okay, 50,000.
100,000.
Okay, 100,000. So you would do it, right? So there's your number. So now let's make the 20 feet deep, but I'm going to put 45 sharks in the water. You're at 100,000.
No, I can't. Wait,
How about a
sharks?
million? How about a million?
Mm, See, I'm sort of now thinking like cost benefit analysis as you were saying. No, it's sharks. I don't know if I'm going to come back alive. Like I have no idea.
10 million. See, as he's thinking, his
Yeah,
brain is running scenarios.
that's right.
That's a prefrontal lobe. It's a future simulator. He's running scenarios, reporting back. Is it in alignment with his values? But he's also making a prediction. Do you think you'd be alive?
No idea. No, probably not.
Probably not. And so then would being dead be in alignment with your values?
No.
No.
That's
So the answer is no. But now here's what's fascinating. What if Mila was playing on the other edge of the pool and she slipped and fell in?
Mm,
Would you go in?
absolutely.
Absolutely. No question.
Yeah.
And so look at how fascinating that is. Before, I couldn't buy you with all the money in the world. But Mila, you didn't even think twice. And the reason is because your value system says her life is worth more than mine. And so then when you think about it from that perspective, so that's a powerful observation. But what's even more powerful is when I got a room full of 50, 100, 1,000 people, and I said, before I go any further, and I'll say to you, Vana, as I look around, how many people in this room without knowing Mila would have also jumped in the room and 1,000 hands go up? And it is so powerful of a moment because, I get emotional when I think about it because not a single person asked, who'd you vote for? What's your spirituality? Do you use iPhone or Android? None of those things came up. They just went in because we washed away all the other rhetoric, all the other semantics, and we got to our course essence of who we are, which at the end of the day, I truly believe we're way more aligned when proximity happens. And so all of those things sort of just washed away, and the truest essence of humanity shined. And so, and I have people look around, and the person there, typically you're there, because a very emotional person, they go, they would jump in for me.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking in my own head.
Yeah. And so if you ask me what my goal in is life is to get people back to that moment as often as possible
Hmm.
through work, through business, through videos, some level of awareness that we're a lot more aligned than we realize.
Powerful example, Renee. Yeah, I'm going to use that example. I'm going to use that. You look at kids, Renee. They live in the moments. As an educator myself, I'm around students all the time. They're upset, angry, they let it go, they move on. And then the cycle of life, conditions, walls, belief systems, it starts to pile on us. And then somewhere we have an emotional breakdown. Call it whatever you want. We start clearing all this stuff, and now we're going back and making a stronger foundation. Wouldn't it be great if these type of discussions were talked in the school system, in the education system, about leadership, vulnerability, just the discussion that you and I had right now, the word semantic, and not having divisions. Where have we gone wrong?
You know, I I I might have a different thought on this one that has changed for me over time. A lot of people get after the school system, but I saw this quote that says, "If you're reading this sign, thank a teacher." I was like, I can't teach someone how to read. I could not teach them algebra. I could not teach them history. I cannot teach them theology. I can't teach them those things. So thank God there are teachers. But there's a role that society plays, a role that parents need to play. And I think that's where we as parents need to step up too. Could we intermix some of those things in that? Yeah, we could. And I think college does that. That's why I'm a big fan of college for the right person, not for everyone. But college got me to take ethics classes, philosophy, theology, got me to take things and taught me how to think. And that's a lot more important, and especially in today's AI world. I just did a commencement speech for an MBA program at the University of Iowa, and I was like, "What am I going to talk? I don't know any of these people. What am I going to talk about?" And I went the night before to the reception, and I was just talking to a lot of the professors. We had people from Stanford and all over the place, the dean of the university, president, and I'm like, What are they all facing?" And they go, "They are scared to death of AI. They just went to school and spent all this money to learn, to accumulate knowledge, but now in an hour, I can get access to what they took 4 years to generate." And so I looked at that and I said, okay, so if I know that I can get knowledge easily, that knowledge isn't the advantage anymore. It's how do I think? You put two people with an AI platform, language model. One person knows how to think logically and has less restriction on imagination, but also knows what questions to ask versus somebody who has none of it. First person's going to ask better questions, better prompts, get better answers. And I'm not talking about kind of better, exponentially better. So we need to teach people how to think. We need to teach them logic. We need to teach them ethics. And we need to incorporate difficult conversations. My son said, "What do you mean by ethical dilemmas?" I said, "Well, all right. The age old. I'm now trapped and tied to a railroad, and a train is coming. You have a lever that you could divert this train and save my life, but you kill 100 people, or you kill me and you save 100. Son, what do you do?" And he's like, "Oh God, Dad,
Oh man,
don't do that, right?"
you're tough, Renee. You're tough.
And I go, "That's the dilemma. Do you do what's good for yourself, or do you do what's good for the community?
Hmm.
And so what's the utility behind this?" And so you have to try to find some measure of what, and then you ask some people like, "That's easy. Those 100 people are dying. I'm keeping you." Right?
Yeah,
It's funny,
forget those. Yeah. I could
but
just
then you
run my
just
students
multiplied your
down.
feeling of loss by 100. And so then now spirituality might say, depending on what you believe, that we're here on a short time on earth. And, I think I forget who it was it Abraham that gave up his own children for the betterment of all. Like there's so many things. Isn't that what we do? So do we think of the community? It's like, man, those are so hard. And it's not meant to have an immediate answer. It's meant to make us think and struggle and suffer over to find the answer. And will we ever find ourselves in a scenario that literal? Probably not. But will we find ourselves in times of decision where sometimes we have to do what's not good for us for the betterment of all? Yes, all the time. It's on a different scale. And so that's where I think thinking, philosophy, ethics, theology, whatever you believe, all that stuff plays into it.
It does play into it. Absolutely. It does. It does. Um, where is leadership moving to now? Where is it going? Where do you see it moving to now?
You know, where's it moving? I, I tried. I'm such a fundamentalist on so many things. Like I think fundamentals never change. It's like somebody saying I got a new fundamental for you, or a new fundamental is like saying I manufacture antiques. Like these things are around. They don't go away. Like
Mm,
if I want to lose weight and I go to a trainer and I say, hey, I want to get in better shape. He goes, okay, let's see what you're eating and how much you're exercising. I'm like, yeah, I tried that last year. Let's try something new and fresh. Where's fitness moving? It hasn't
right.
moved.
Mm,
It's still an equation, calories in, calories out. Now there's movement differences and scientific improvements on the quality of those movements and the quality of the foods and better approaches. And I think that's what we can find within leadership. But the fundamental things I don't think have changed. There's a real, so are you a tone deaf leader? Do you have self awareness, emotional intelligence? Do you have the skills to influence in front of a room? Do you believe in transparency? Because transparency is not a choice anymore. Because people are much more astute now. And have we shifted in understanding what we call kairos, or the zeitgeist, the era that we're in? Are you aware there's certain things that we used to say in the past that just don't fly anymore? That we can't say certain things, and you can be canceled whether you agree with it or not. That is still the state of the world. And so as leaders, we need to be super hyper aware of all of those things. And so there is a transparency that comes with this new place. But I would say that the fake leaders, I can go back on that. I can say the fake leaders are being seen quicker, but then we can also create fake leadership through social media.
that's right.
Okay. Well, I think that's shifting because I think that the age of the influencer is slowly dying away because we're starting to see through the influencer. It was cool and impressive at first, but now we're starting to ask better questions. Can you fake your way through AI? But yeah, I don't think you can fake your way through an oral exam. And so, it's like, yeah, we have artificial intelligence, but this is part of the speech that I gave. I said, let's replace intelligence for some other things that we love. I said, well, do we want artificial love? Do we want artificial wisdom, artificial empathy, artificial compassion,
Mm,
artificial wisdom? And I went through this whole list, and artificial friendships. And I go, when you think about it that way, it's not so scary anymore. That truly our biggest human capacity, our number one most competitive advantage, the thing that truly is irreplaceable, is our humanity. And I think in the contrasting world we're living in, the more human we are, the more we'll affect. So maybe that's the answer of how leadership needs to become, is a lot more human.
yes, totally. I liked how you gave that comparison. Okay, what about artificial love and artificial X? Fill in the blank. Wow, that it just hit me. It's true. It's the humanity. It's in the last 10, 12 minutes that we have here. I want to just jump into two topics here. Um, and maybe we won't get enough time to sort of get into it. What's the role of science in leadership? Uh, you know, the science and the mind, you know, play a big role. Are those fundamental years, as from they say from 1 to 6? Does that set the blueprint in the mind?
So you're asking me what's the role of science in leadership?
Yes.
Um, I mean, I think it's incumbent upon leaders to be most um, in tune with progress. I think, and science's job is to progress us forward in understanding of our potential, what works, what doesn't work, and in the now. But there's also people that have no science, but yet are phenomenal leaders. They have They've learned things. So I think that, there's a scientific approach to leadership, as long as we don't lose the human side of it. There's, usually a lot of the leadership professors are not somebody you'd want to follow, which is really interesting. They're theoretical, and they're theorists, and so it's you've got to have both on there. But I think that you take somebody who knows how to be human, they understands body language and tone, they understand and they're empathetic, they're emotionally intelligent, and then you give that person science. It only exemplifies that core foundational fundamental of who they are. And so, like, even in our course for Amplify, we teach people a very intense 2-day workshop to create transformation and presentation and leadership skills. But we begin with an inner exploration of your story and your origin. And they go, why don't we just, I go, I just want to learn the body. I go, I can teach you the body language, the sequencing, the timing, the facial expression. I can teach you all that stuff. But if I do that on an empty soul, why? You won't go anywhere. Now, you might trick yourself. You might be able to trick a few people here and there, but that's not what we're here for. But when you come from this place, it's truly in tune with who you are, and that fingerprint has been outlined of what your mark is and where you go. Now we align skills on that. Now that's way more powerful.
It's like doing the inner work, isn't it, Renee?
Yeah.
It's the inner work, getting in touch with maybe parts of us that we haven't communicated with, or parts that we want to bring forth. And I guess, or in your 2-day events, is that what happens? You dive into that part of the person that either they've sort of neglected, or bringing out something that they want to bring forth.
Yeah. It's we do a lot of what we call origin story exploration. Who are they? Who are they? What do they do? What makes them unique? And nobody knows really how to answer that question. So we choose a word, 2, 3 words of what makes you unique. And we say, okay, if those words typically represent their values. And we know that our values are formulated between ages of 9 to 13. So we take that word, let's say it's empathy or hard work, and we follow that between ages 9 to 13, and we find a story of the person who embodied that. And what we know is that there's 2 types of people. There's a lighthouse or a foghorn. A lighthouse is the role model for that hard work. The foghorn would be the opposite, the one who didn't work hard. And they'll know immediately, oh, no, this is my father, and he was a lighthouse. Wonderful. Tell us about your dad between the ages of 9 to 13, and he was a lighthouse for hard work. Well, I remember growing up on a farm, like immediately, this person works hard. And at 4 a.m., he'd come in, turn the lights on, and be like, let's go. And it was time to milk the cows, get the eggs, and basically have a work day before school started. And so that was how I started every day. And we weren't allowed to complain. We just got up and we did the work. And so then that origin of who they are, you don't have to tell me you work hard. You just have to tell me you grew up on a farm, getting up every day. I already know you work hard then. And so it's like those origins become who we are. Those origin stories become the foundation of what values are set, and the way in which we live out the world is usually filtered through that set of values. And our values, once 21 happens, we don't change them. We just reprioritize them throughout life. Sometimes family takes a higher priority. Sometimes it takes a lower if we're trying to build a business. As long as it's within harmony of the people around you and integrated in some way, I think it's fine. That's why work-life balance, I think, is not the goal.
Mm. Yeah. Doing the deep work, and like you had said, you call it origins. I think it's very powerful. It really is. It's a reminder of who we are, almost where we come from. In the last couple of minutes that we have, Renee, who are your leaders? Who are your leaders? Who do you look up to? You invest so much time supporting and allowing others to see the best of themselves. What does Renee do to be the best version of himself? Who are his idols and leaders that he's looked up to?
Yeah. Well, my mother was one of them for sure.
Mm,
I lost her about 2.5 years ago. And then Jim Rohn,
mm,
still to this day, is somebody who affects me. And then from there, I look at, there is no perfect human. And so I've always looked at traits of many.
mm,
There are certain people that are just phenomenal in business, but not real good with family. So I don't worry about their family choices. I look at what are their business choices. There are people that are great with money, but maybe not good with relationships, or people that are great in relationships, but just horrible with money and business. And then there's people that are really healthy, but physically, but not mentally real healthy.
Mm.
And so, I piece together all the elements that really go there. And I look at surrounding myself around the people who are going in the direction that I want and allow them to lead. Peer leadership, I think, is really good. Peer mentorship, I think, is really good. I love listening to Jordan Peterson. Not everything he says, but he's so articulate in that manner. But he's also somebody who struggles with massive depression. He's somebody who is, can sometimes get pretty bitter. But of course, look at how the attacks he's gotten. But he's also brilliant. He's so smart. I think it hurts his brain, because he thinks at such a deeper level, and it inspires me to want to grow my thinking. And there's so many people.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, just as you were sort of explaining, you know, starting off with your mom and then, multiple people. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't have one person that I look at myself like no, it's like whoever has that gift, I try to bring those traits to myself.
Yeah,
And just as you were speaking, I'm like, that totally connects with me as well, too. Uh, have you been to Canada?
I have. Yes.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
so just in the last couple of minutes, just to change a little bit, yeah. Where have you visited in Canada? And are you
Montreal has
planning to have any events down here? Because I see that most of your events are in Minnesota. Is it?
Well, that's where I live. Actually, the least amount of my events are in Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I live in Minnesota, but yeah, it's all over the country. This year, we did Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Italy. We have to go back pretty soon. But no, Montreal is probably one of my favorite cities in the world. I did a TED talk. It's coming out here shortly in Toronto a few months ago.
Oh, is that right?
Hmm.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's amazing. Amazing. Oh, any plans to come back to Canada or?
If I'm ever invited.
Definitely. You know what, Renee? I really wanted to thank you for your time and sharing and focusing on, the role of leadership, confidence, and the impact that spirituality has, and how semantics can sometimes break or bring people together, and how to be mindful of all that. I think it's very important. And you have this wonderful platform where you actually allow people to do the work inside, which you call the origin, and allow them to be themselves. And how you said that every day anyone can be a leader, and my gardener could be a leader to me because of the way he does something. I can take on all that stuff. So you've definitely allowed me to sort of embrace a lot. So I appreciate the time and effort for you to come out. So thank you for being here
Thank
with
you.
Saga, keeping it real.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.